Okay, if you look over on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see the money lines. The money lines will rise up from the head and spine line, travel up towards the mercury finger, the pinky finger. These lines will reflect how many income streams you'll experience at any given time. The timeline starts at around age 20 at the head and spine line, and when it transverses that heart line, that's about age 45. And the area between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the little ring around the little finger is the late 40s and up into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond. There's a timeline that runs up through that. Now, these are any income streams from jobs you have or spouse's jobs, investments, inheritance, or any money that comes into your household. And you've got to count student loans, anything that increases your income into your household. Later on, we'll show you how to correlate these lines with the achievement lines and the fate line. So as we take a look at your money lines, these are actually income streams. We start at age 20, so it looks like from age 20 to your mid-30s, you have 2 lines. That's 2 income streams. From your mid-30s to your mid-40s, you have 3 lines. Then from your mid-40s into your early 50s, you have 2 lines. From your early 50s into your mid-60s, there's 3 lines. And then from your mid-60s on up into your 80s, there's 2 lines, 2 income streams. Alright, moving on to your relationship and marriage lines. That area just above the flirt lines, just below the bottom ring of that mercury or that little finger, are your relationships and your marriages. These horizontal lines sit between the top of the heart line and the bottom of the ring on that little finger. There's a timeline there, and you divide these up into 3 sections. Now, coming up from the bottom, that first section is your 20s and 30s, the middle section is your 40s and 50s, and that third section is 60 and above. You'll read those lines beginning from the back of the hand, which is the start of the relationship or the marriage, towards the palm, which is later on. The lighter lines will be relationship lines, and the darker ones, the more prominent lines, will stand out and have a great density and color to them, reflect your marriages. So as we take a look at those horizontal lines on the edge of that right hand, and you can see that 7-year relationship, line goes along, then it just kind of fades out. But then you have this very strong marriage line. Goes along nice and consistent, has a nice deep color to it. You don't see any big ovals or breaks in the line that would interrupt the energy. You've got a lot of positive lines that are coming off the top of it. It looks to be a good marriage. Now you have a second line above that, and it doesn't look like a marriage line. It just looks like a relationship line. It could either be that, or what that is a renewal of vows on that first marriage. And we tend to think that's what it is because that first marriage line is so good. Now, in order to find a timeline on that marriage line, we go over to the left hand and we look for a little fork that comes off of there. This is an opportunity to marry, and you've got one right there around 41, 42 years old. But that's a very strong marriage line. Now, the children lines come down vertically from the bottom of that ring around the mercury finger, and you count them from the inside of your palm to the outer edge. And these can be biological children, stepchildren, adopted, godchildren, or nieces and nephews. Any child that you build a strong bond with. And as we take a look at those vertical lines, and they come off that bottom ring of that pinky finger, right there on the edge of the hand, they sit above these marriage lines, or marriage and relationship lines. And we actually see 3 lines there. So that's 3 children. Then you have a little space and a bunch of little lines behind that. Those are grandchildren lines. We don't usually count those grandchildren lines in your hands. Those are better counted in your children's hands. But you have 3 very strong children lines there. Good close bond. The first thing you need to know is that your left hand is your past. Your right hand is your present and future. It does not matter what your dominant hand is. Most of the work we do is on the right hand. Sometimes we'll reference that left hand. Before we get started, let me give you a little insight about palmistry and how the lines and markings are named. It's about 2,000 or 3,000 years old. Some say it's even a little bit older than that. And they've gone through and they've named all the fingers in certain sections of the hand with names of Greek gods and goddesses, or with astrological names. So that index finger is the Jupiter finger. The middle finger or business finger is the Saturn finger. The ring finger is the Sun finger. Some like to call it the Apollo finger or the finger of Apollo. The little or the pinky finger is the Mercury finger. That section there between the head and the heart line is called the Mars area. Another important area is the base of the thumb, that little fat pad. It's the Mount of Venus, the goddess of love. This will reflect your sexual libido. It also shows how well you're hydrated. You want to see a little fat pad there so tight you can hardly pinch or pick up the skin. And you look to be slightly dehydrated. You can go online and see how much water you need for your height and weight. Okay, look down there on your chart where it says palm shape. The shape of your palm is your most important talent, and it looks like you have a long palm, which means you're a philosophical thinker. You tend to overanalyze things. You kind of think them to death. Okay, look in the upper right-hand corner of your chart, and this is your fingertip shapes. They reveal your personality type. It looks like you have a combination of fingertips. You have pointed fingertips, meaning you like fine things, you're sensitive, you're diplomatic, you're impractical, you're always a collector. And you have round fingertips, meaning you're intuitive, quick, compassionate. You should actually be in the health field. Okay, now the length of your fingers in relationship to the length of your palm and other fingers are your talents, what you're good at. Long fingers mean one thing, short fingers mean another. No one gets shorted. Everyone has their own unique talents. Nothing is good or bad. They all have their good qualities. Let's start with the thumb. You have a long thumb. It means you'll do well in life. You have good manual dexterity like carpenters, artists, and surgeons. Alright, moving on to the Jupiter finger. That is your index finger. You have a long index finger, which means you have a great sales ability. These are fingers of politicians, teachers, supervisors. It's a leadership finger. Okay, your business or your Saturn finger. Now this is the finger that is the basis of all measurement for all the other fingers. It should be almost as long as your palm. And you have an average Saturn finger, meaning you're concerned with social issues and how they affect your fellow man, but you understand that business must be conducted in a professional manner that results in a win-win situation. Now the ring finger, or the sun finger, some call it the finger of Apollo, is your creative finger. It represents your right brain. And you have an average sun finger, meaning you have qualities of both the long and the short fingers. You're creative, imaginative, inventive, but you're also practical, systematic, and organized. Finally, your pinky finger, or your Mercury finger. This is your scholarly finger and represents your left brain. And you have a short Mercury finger. It means you're a hands-on person. You're active. You get things done. Okay, let's start with the lines and markings on the palm of your right hand. Look on your chart and find the heart line. It's the top horizontal line just under the fingers. Now follow the heart line to the end just underneath that Mercury finger, or that pinky finger. Those are your flirt lines, the little tassels on the end of the heart line. That's a good indicator of how well you interact with others. And you actually have some really good tassels on the end of that heart line. It means that you do interact well with people. In fact, you're really kind of a little bit of a social person. It means you put yourself out there to meet new people and to interact with them. Okay, we're going to shoot over here to the heart line. The heart line is the horizontal line at the top of the palm. It's just below the fingers and tells us about your emotional state and the physical health of your heart. And you have a curved heart line. It means you're loving and caring, very compassionate person. Now, your heart line also reflects the health of your heart. You want a nice, clean, consistent line without breaks or little islands on it. If you have these markings, that can indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. So as we take a look at your heart line, you actually have a very strong heart line. It goes along nice and consistent. You don't see any big breaks or islands in the line that would break that energy. You do have a little tiny bit of fussiness there. Oh, that's up there in your like 70s or 80s. And you have some of these little triangles underneath, which would indicate a little bit of stress on that heart. But we'll look in that spine line in just a minute and see if that's not a contributing factor. But other than that, that heart line looks nice and healthy. Now, I'll tell you how to double check that line. If there's anything serious, you want to look at the edge of your fingernails. And if you have any kind of a steep roundness to them, or what we call clubbing, especially if they grow over the end of the fingertip, then you want to look at the nail beds. There should be a nice pink color underneath that nail bed. You don't want any kind of blue or bluish tinge. Because if you do have kind of a bluish tinge to that, it means you're not getting the blood flow or the oxygen to the extremities. It means that your heart's actually working a lot harder than it should be. And if you have any of these indicators, you probably want to get a hold of your doctor and have them take a look at your heart. Alright, moving on to the sixth sense. The sixth sense is your intuition. It shows up as a nice little mound just under that index or that Jupiter finger on the right hand. And you want to see that nice little fat pad there. It's called the Mount of Jupiter. And your Mount of Jupiter is actually very robust. It's a little bit flattened just because of the dehydration, but you can tell it's a pretty robust mound. This means that you have a very strong intuition, a strong sixth sense. Now, you also have, and these sit right between that heart line and that head line, just underneath that Saturn finger, that middle finger, you have what we call psychic X's. It means you've got some psychic ability. And in truth, what that means is that you kind of see, feel, and hear things before they happen, kind of premonitions. And what that really is, it's a good connection to your guardian angels. Always follow that first gut feeling, that first inclination. You want to listen to that small, still voice in the back of your mind This is your guardian angels communicating with you through your subconscious mind, and they're there to guide you. You have a very strong connection to them. Let me tell you how to use or develop that intuition. Whenever you have a problem that seems difficult to solve, find a nice quiet room in the house, one without distractions, and sit down, turn off the lights, relax and quiet your mind. And when you're nice and calm, ask out loud for a solution to your problem. Then put it down and out of your mind and walk away for about probably 30 minutes and let your intuition and your subconscious work on that answer. And when you come back to it, you should have an answer. Listen to the small promptings, the still small voice in the back of your mind, and you should receive an answer fairly quickly. And this actually works really well at night. If you do this just before you go to sleep and let that subconscious mind kind of work on that overnight, you'll find that when you wake, you have a good answer to your problem. Okay, on to the headline. The headline is the horizontal line that spans across the middle of your palm. It sits just below that heart line, and if you look on your chart there, it starts in between the thumb and index finger, and it ends towards the edge of the palm, just underneath that Mercury finger. This line represents how well you use your mental energy. The straighter across the palm that line goes, the sharper you are. If it dips down just a little bit at the end, or even a lot into that luna area, that little fat pad that runs vertical up to that little finger from your wrist on the outside of your palm, it can indicate a little bit of depression or brain fog. And this is when your mind just doesn't quite work at its peak performance. And this can be related to other aspects, other markings that are around the head and spine line, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So as we examine your headline actually goes pretty straight across the palm of your hand. It means you have a really good use of that mental energy, a good clarity of mind. You don't see any big breaks or big islands in the line that would break that energy. Now, when you get out on the end of that line, it dips down a little tiny bit, and this is just underneath that Mercury or that pinky finger. You can see where it dips down just a little bit, and that can indicate a little tiny bit of depression or anxiety. And what that does is it causes a little bit of brain fog sometimes, makes it hard to concentrate. But we'll look in that spine line in a minute here and see if that's not a contributing factor. But other than that, it's a very strong headline. Okay, now the spine line, which is also called the headline, reveals the health of your spine. And it'll show if you have problems with vertebrae or discs in your back. It will show if they are subluxated. And what this means is they're turned out of place or they could be damaged. Or you could have a condition such as scoliosis or a twisting of the spine. It starts right there between the thumb and index finger, or the Jupiter finger, and travels across the palm just under the Mercury finger. Now pull up your spine chart. It's called the Chart of Effects of Spinal Misalignment, and that section underneath the index finger, if you're on your spine line underneath the Jupiter finger, that represents your cervical spine, kind of that neck area, that 1C to 7C, and it goes down to what's called the Dowager's Hump. This is the hump that you see in older folks when they're walking around and they're kind of bent over there at the neck, just under the bottom of the neck and the top of the back. That's where your cervical spine is. Then the area just underneath that Saturn or that middle finger is your thoracic spine. This is your 1T down to your 12T. That's the back that goes all the way down to your waist. Then there's that area underneath the sun finger or the ring finger, and that's your lumbar area. This is 1L to 5L. This is kind of your waist and your hips. Then of course you go down to your sacrum and your coccyx to the tailbone, which is underneath that little or that Mercury finger. Let me tell you a little bit about, Kat has a master's degree in health education, and when she was going to college, she was developing her craft in hand analysis, and she came across a book from a longtime doctor, Dr. Eugene Scheinman, and he talked about how your spinal health absolutely shows in your hands, and working with Kat over the years, it's proven to be very real and accurate. And I always get a little chuckle when I hear back on some of the past clients that have taken their charts to their chiropractor or their physical therapist and having an evaluation, and the medical care provider was amazed how spot on the charts were. Okay, let's look at your chart. If you look over there on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see an image of a spine, and we're going to start right at the very top part of this spine. And you can see that 1C actually all the way down through that whole neck, down through that 7C, that whole cervical spine. Looks like you've got some kind of issues with it. And these are just very minute on that line. Let's see, you didn't say if you had any damage in your spine or not, but they could be turned out of place just a little tiny bit, a little misaligned. And then that 7C down to the 3T, it's kind of that top part of your back right there between your shoulder blades, a little bit above that. And then that 8T, that deep thoracic down to the 2L, down in that hip region, in that lumbar region. Looks like there's a little bit of issues there. And then that 5L down at the very bottom part of the spine. Looks like there's some issues there. And to tell you the truth, when that's turned out at the top part, that kind of turns out at the bottom part a little bit to compensate for your center of gravity. And if you look over to the right on your chart, you'll see the areas column. And this is the parts of the body that are affected when you've got some issues in that spine. And of course the effects all the way over to the right will show you what kind of symptoms you can have. And if you recall, we'd seen a little bit of stress on that heart line with those little triangles underneath. I'll tell you, and that shows that when you've got that 2T out of place, that really makes that heart work a little bit harder than it needs to. It can lead to a little bit of chronic fatigue, some anxiety. And then where we had seen a little bit of depression or anxiety on that headline, when that 1C's out of place, that can really exacerbate that. Especially when you've got that 7C and that 2T out at the same time. That can really get anxiety going. So you can look around that chart there and see if you have any of those symptoms. And this could be a possible contributor to that. We'll always tell you when we see this, to get into a good chiropractor, or even better yet, a good physical therapist, and see if they can't get that realigned, get that energy flowing correctly down through that spine. Especially where you have that 1 and 2C out. Try to find somebody that knows cranial sacral work. And what they'll do is they'll go into the roof of the mouth and they'll either massage or they'll adjust those little plates in the roof of the mouth because it gives them better access to that 1 and 2C vertebrae. We find a lot of times that when people get those realigned that they just have a lot more energy, a lot more ambition, and they just feel a lot better during the day. So that's something to consider. And I've seen many of Kat's clients and people she's done readings for, they'll take these charts down and show it to their doctors, and it's kind of a funny story how people will come back and their doctors are just amazed how accurate these spine charts are. Now you also have a health line that correlates with the head and spine line, and this line represents your general health. It starts at the bottom kind of center of their palm and it rises up towards that mercury or that little finger, and it stops at the head and spine line. And it should be a nice straight line without breaks or islands. This shows the health of your gut, like your stomach, your intestines, gallbladder, and the internal organs, and really more specifically your digestive system. If that line looks healthy, your general health is usually pretty good. Now, as we take a look at your health line, it's actually a very strong line, and it goes up there towards that mercury finger pretty good, but then it has a little bit of an overlap on it, and that can indicate a little bit of stress on those internal organs, on that digestive system, but we'd kind of seen that in that spine line down in that lumbar region. Once you get in there and get that adjusted, get that energy flowing correctly, you're going to find that these lines actually clean up pretty good. Alright, let's move on to your achievement lines. Now these achievement lines are small lines that rise up off the top of the lifeline, and they travel up towards that Saturn finger. The small lines represent your achievements, your successes, all of your wins in life, like graduating high school or graduating college also, marriages, having children, getting a new job, a promotion, coming into money, any type of thing, like winning awards, anything that's a win in life. Now these rise off the top of the lifeline until you're around age 40, and then right there at the bottom, it kind of moves to the inside of that lifeline where they rise up. Let's look at what ages your achievements are. That will be on the top of your chart up there towards the left-hand side of your chart. And you have achievements at these ages 13, 15. 15 is a really good one. We have it circled there. Then age 17, 19, and 20 are both really good ones. We have that circled. Then 24, 26, 29, 32, 35, 38. 41 is another really good one. That could be that marriage right there, 41 or 42. And then 45, 49 is a good one. Then 52, 54, 56, another good one at 58. Then 60, 62, 63, and 66 are both really good ones. Then 68, 74, good one at 78, and age 80. Now, something you must understand about these lines or any other lines that we quote an age on, and these are just approximations, you want to add or subtract a year or two from that age. For example, let's say we indicate like age 50. That could be age 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. We don't always hit the age right exact, but we come pretty close most of the time. Alright, let's move on to your guardian angels. Now, who your guardian angels are will show in your left hand, and your left hand only. If you've had a visit or some type of intervention or even an interaction with them, that will show in your right hand. So let's start with who your guardian angels are. Now as we look in this left hand, who your guardian angels are represented by a line that runs parallel to the lifeline. If you look on your hand chart, you can see where the lifeline is. It starts up there between your index and your thumb and travels down your thumb or down around your wrist. And there's a timeline on that lifeline that starts at your earliest age and progresses as you grow older. Age 10 is right at the very edge of your palm, right there between your thumb and Jupiter finger, and as that travels down, you draw an imaginary line straight down from the inside of your index or that Jupiter finger, kind of that area right there between your index and your middle Saturn finger. That is about age 20. As you travel down the line, to where that lifeline turns right at the kind of the bottom base of that thumb, and it goes around the wrist. That's right around age 40. And as it gets down around the edge of your palm, the outside edge around the wrist, that's about age 56. And then it goes backwards on around the back of the hand, and that's your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. Now, where that guardian angel line touches on your lifeline is the age that you were when a loved one passed away. There will be a third small line that intersects that guardian angel line, and this shows who your guardian angel is. This is kind of showing where they passed away. And this can be grandpas, grandmas, parents, aunties, uncles, siblings, cousins, nieces, nephews, children, or close friends, anyone that you had a strong bond with. Now, who your guardian angels are show at these ages 14, 16, 20, and 29. Now, if you've had a visit or any kind of intervention from your guardian angels, it'll show in your right hand. These are the same lines as in the left, but they run parallel to the lifeline, and they travel up and eventually touch on the lifeline. The small intersecting lines are not present in the right hand because that line reflects the death of a loved one. Now, these show a visit or some kind of intervention or interaction, such as if, like maybe you received a warning that caused you to avoid an accident or something tragic, or you're in a bad accident and survived, or if your guardian angel just come to check in on you and give you a message in a dream or something like that. And I really get a kick out of some of the dozens of stories that clients have told about interactions they've had with their guardian angels. And I hope you don't mind, I've got to tell you about this story. And it's one that really resonates in my mind, is when Kat was reading the hand of a little older gentleman. He was probably in, probably his 50s, and she discovered a prominent guardian angel line that showed in his hand right around age 40. And she asked him what happened here. Well, this poor guy got really emotional, and without hesitation, he starts to describe in detail how he was sitting at home alone one evening, and he's getting a little concerned about where his 16-year-old daughter was, who had gone out to a high school football game, and she was late getting home, and he was getting a little concerned. And he tells about how he was sitting in his favorite chair in the living room, and he glanced at a portrait of his deceased wife that was sitting up on the mantel, and he heard her voice clear as day. But this was more in his head than kind of audible. And it states how he needed to go out and find his daughter. So he called his sister, and they ran all over town looking for his daughter. They were eventually guided to this little mom-and-pop restaurant, where they got in there, and he saw his daughter standing out back behind the restaurant. And there were a bunch of guys on bikes, and they were riding around her and harassing her, so he went to his car and grabbed a baseball bat, and he went out and chased them off. Well, it turns out that his daughter had gone to get some shakes with some of her friends after the game, and she somehow got a wrong turn and ended up out back of the restaurant. So as this guy was getting his hand read, he was telling Kat this story, and his daughter was sitting right next to him, and she's nodding her head in agreement, and she's getting really kind of emotional. Kat then says to her, "Show me your right hand," and sure enough, his daughter had the same very prominent guardian angel line right there at age 16. So the lines matched up. So isn't that interesting? And we're actually going to publish a book in the near future with all those amazing stories in there. Okay, now, any visits from your guardian angels or any kind of divine intervention or celestial protection shows at these ages 14, 16, and 20. Okay, we're going to move on to your fate line. The fate line, this is in your right hand only, reflects changes in your lifestyle or career, and they're really actually kind of interconnected. There's a timeline that starts at the bottom of the palm, and it's right there right around the wrist, which is your younger years, and it travels up towards the middle Saturn finger for your later years. Now, whenever there's a break in that line, it will show a change in your lifestyle or career, and if you have more than one line, that depicts additional responsibilities like another job or taking care of someone, or something like an intense hobby, or maybe even a cause that you're a part of. Now, this fate line will also show how long you'll live in your present state of health, and this is barring any foreseen accidents or disease. Now, that fate line starts at the base of the palm and travels up, and if it starts right in the center, you're kind of a private person. If it starts on the outside, you're a social person. And you have kind of a combination of social and private characteristics, meaning you don't mind being around people sometimes, but at the end of the day, you'd rather spend time at home alone, away from others, to decompress. Now, if you'll take a look down in the bottom right-hand corner of your chart, you'll see the fate line, and this is when you have changes in your career or lifestyle, and they're really both interconnected. So from 20 to 26, you have two lines. That's two jobs, or it could be a job and a responsibility of like maybe taking care of someone, or some kind of a project you're working on. It looks like you've got changes right there at age 26. Then from 26 to 38, there's one line, and you have changes there at age 29, 31, and 38. And then from 38 to 58, you have two lines, with a change there at age 45, 50, and 58. And then from 58 to 63, there's one line, with a change there at age 63. And then from 63 on up into your 80s, there's two lines, with a change right there at age 74. And then those lines go up there into your late 80s. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about how to put these money lines, achievement lines, and the fate line together. And we're going to start right here at age 26. You can see where you have an achievement there. And it shows as a change down there in your fate line at age 26. And then you have an achievement there at age 29. And that shows down on your fate line as a change. And then right there you have at age 38 an achievement. That shows as a change down on your fate line. And that shows over on your money lines. There's a little increase in your income streams in those mid-30s. Then you have an achievement there at age 45. That shows down on your fate line as a change. And it shows a little decrease there in your mid-40s. But then you have a little change right there around age 50 in your fate line. And it shows another increase in your income streams there in your early 50s. Then you have a big achievement there at age 58. And that shows down on your fate line. Another big achievement there at age 63. And that shows down on your fate line as well. Then it shows a little decrease in your income streams there in your mid-60s. And then you have an achievement there at age 74. That shows down on your fate line as well. So that's how we put these lines together to where they verify each other and let you see the big picture.